Released on May 30th, 1995, Poverty's Paradise marked a turning point for Naughty by Nature. The group, comprised of Tretch, Vin Rock, and KG, had already made a name with their previous albums, particularly for club-friendly hits like OPP and Hip Hop Hooray. But Poverty's Paradise arrived with a different kind of ambition. It was their most politically conscious and socially reflective project, aimed at capturing the tension, hardship, and resilience of life in working-class Black America during the mid-1990s. Compared to their previous records, this album leaned harder into gritty realism and street-level narratives while still maintaining the group's knack for accessible hooks and polished production. KG handles the bulk of the production, crafting a soundscape that blends East Coast boom bap with subtle touches of West Coast funk and mid-90s radio sensibilities. The beats are tighter and darker than those on previous Naughty albums, often built around chopped soul samples, filtered bass lines, and crisp drum programming. There's a stronger focus on low-end frequencies, and the production is generally more minimal than on 1993, signaling a deliberate shift from pop crossover appeal to hip-hop credibility. Tracks like Clap Ya Hands and Craziest maintain an upbeat, bouncy rhythm, but there's always a hard edge in the mix. Snare-heavy drum lines, aggressive sample loops, and layers of vocal scratches. On Sunshine, the group interpolates Roy Ayers' Everybody Loves the Sunshine, offering one of the more laid-back melodic moments on the album, while Chain Remains dives into moody jazz samples that underscore Tretch's vivid lyrics. The album's sound remains rooted in street culture, but it doesn't get bogged down in sonic monotony. There's a balance between the harsh and the smooth, the angry and the hopeful, a musical representation of the album's thematic duality. Tretch stands out as a technically brilliant, albeit occasionally underappreciated MC. His rapid-fire, multi-syllabic flows, internal rhymes, and alliteration are impressive throughout the album. His cadence remains aggressive and urgent, and Poverty's Paradise gives him more room to stretch out lyrically than on earlier, more commercial records. This time around, Naughty by Nature isn't just about party anthems. While there are still moments of levity and swagger, much of the lyrical content tackles real-world issues, systemic poverty, police violence, institutional racism, and inner-city despair. The title track, Poverty's Paradise, is a biting indictment of American socio-economics, contrasting the glamorization of ghetto life with its brutal reality. Songs like Holden Fort and Slang Bang are filled with coded street language, but they serve as records of the internal logic and survival tactics of urban environments. There's a recurring theme of perseverance, how communities endure and adapt even in the face of political neglect and economic hardship. Tretch's lyrics are more pointed and reflective here, without sacrificing his rhythmic dexterity or streetwise bravado. That said, Tretch's lyrical density can be overwhelming at times, and his metaphors occasionally sacrifice clarity for complexity. While this is part of his style, it sometimes makes the messaging feel more abstract than grounded. Vin Rock, as usual, takes more of a secondary role on the mic, adding hype energy and hooks, but the lyrical heavy lifting is clearly Tretch's domain. This dynamic has always worked for Naughty by Nature, but on an album as dense as this, it would have been interesting to hear more diverse vocal contributions or guest features. Poverty's Paradise was released during a transitional moment in hip-hop. 1995 was a peak year for lyricism and narrative-driven albums. Only Built for Cuban Links, Me Against the World, The Infamous, and Lifestyles of the Poor and Dangerous were all redefining the East Coast sound. Naughty by Nature, long seen as more commercial or party-oriented, made a conscious move to align themselves with this wave of serious, politically aware rap. Winning the Grammy for Best Rap Album in 1996 was both a validation of their artistic shift and a reflection of how the mainstream was beginning to acknowledge deeper thematic content in hip-hop. Yet the album did not receive the same critical reverence as some of its contemporaries. Some critics argued that the album was uneven, too serious to be party rap, but too polished to fully embody underground credibility. Commercially, Poverty's Paradise did not produce a massive crossover hit like OPP or Hip Hop Hooray, which may explain why it has been somewhat forgotten in broader hip-hop discourse. However, its influence is felt in how it helped bridge the gap between mainstream appeal and street-conscious content. One criticism of Poverty's Paradise is its length and occasional redundancy. With 21 tracks, including interludes, the album runs over an hour and not all of the songs feel essential. Tracks like Respect Due and Shout Out don't add much to the narrative or sonic palette, and the skits, while atmospheric, often interrupt the flow rather than enhancing the themes. Additionally, while Tretch's lyricism lyricism is technically strong, the album could have benefited from more focused storytelling. Many verses feel like rapid-fire barrages of clever bars rather than cohesive narratives. As a result, some of the album's political messaging is diluted by lyrical flamboyance and verbosity. There's also a sense that Poverty's Paradise exists in a transitional space between commercial and conscious, between radio play and underground respect. That tension, while admirable, sometimes leaves the album feeling tonally inconsistent. Poverty's Paradise is a bold, socially conscious album that finds Naughty by Nature at their most lyrically and musically ambitious. It is a testament to Treach's MC abilities and KG's evolving production style. While the album doesn't always stick the landing, suffering from bloat and occasional thematic murkiness, it remains an important and underappreciated chapter in mid-90s hip-hop. It may not have the instant hooks of their earlier work, but it showcases the group's depth and willingness to engage with real-world issues. In retrospect, Poverty's Paradise deserves greater recognition not only for its Grammy win, but for its effort to push beyond formula and commit to a deeper artistic vision.